John Bardeen is the only person to win the Nobel Prize in Physics twice. John Bardeen stands in a category of his own in the history of science. Many scientists dream of winning one Nobel Prize in their lifetime, because it represents the highest recognition of human intellect, creativity, and contribution to knowledge. Yet Bardeen did something that seems almost unbelievable. He earned the Nobel Prize in Physics not once, but twice. This achievement is not only rare, it is unique in his field. While a few scientists in other areas have won 2 Nobels, no other physicist has repeated the feat. Understanding why this matters requires looking closely at both how Nobel Prizes work and what Bardeen accomplished. Across his remarkable career, the Nobel Prize is awarded to discoveries that transform our understanding of the world or change the direction of entire fields. Winning it once means your work changed history. Winning it twice means you changed history twice, in completely different ways. Bardeen's 2 prizes were separated by more than 15 years and were tied to 2 separate breakthroughs, both of which reshaped modern life. His first Nobel recognized his role in inventing the transistor, and his second honored his part in explaining superconductivity. These are not small contributions. They are the foundation stones of today's technology and scientific thinking. What makes Bardeen's double Nobel so impressive is not just that the discoveries were important, but that they belonged to different corners of physics. Many scientists specialize deeply in one narrow subject their entire lives. Bardeen managed to operate successfully at the intersection of theory and engineering, bridging academic physics with real-world applications. He demonstrated that great science is not only about abstract thought, it is also about solving practical problems and improving human capability. Work on the transistor revolutionized electronics, paving the way for computers, smartphones, medical devices, and nearly every digital tool we use today. Without Bardeen's contributions, our modern information age would simply not exist in the same way. Winning one Nobel Prize can sometimes mark the peak of a career. Yet after receiving his first, Bardeen did not slow down, celebrate endlessly, or attempt to live off his reputation. Instead, he returned to the quiet routine of research, teaching, and collaboration. He sought not fame but understanding. This attitude reveals an important lesson. His double Nobel was the result of mindset as much as intelligence. He approached problems patiently, often spending years exploring details that others overlooked. Rather than chasing headlines, he chased clarity. That humility and persistence created space for his second world-changing discovery. Another striking aspect of Bardeen's story is how he worked with others. Science today is often portrayed as a competition, but Bardeen thrived in collaborative environments. At Bell Labs, he worked closely with fellow researchers to invent the transistor. Later, he teamed up with Leon Cooper and Robert Schrieffer to explain superconductivity. In both cases, he helped shape an atmosphere where ideas could grow, gently, carefully, without ego dominating the conversation. The Nobel committees recognized not only his ideas, but also the way he helped others refine and connect theirs. His ability to build strong partnerships was a crucial ingredient in his twin successes. The uniqueness of his achievement also highlights how rare deep, sustained excellence truly is. Many brilliant scientists contribute one major idea. Far fewer build a lifetime of discoveries that keep evolving and expanding. Bardeen did not rely on one great insight. He cultivated a disciplined way of thinking that kept generating useful breakthroughs. His double Nobel proves that genius is not simply a spark, but often a long, steady fire. It is the product of curiosity nurtured over decades, supported by careful study and a willingness to learn from mistakes. There is another dimension to this achievement that often goes unnoticed. Bardeen's personality was calm and understated. He avoided the spotlight, rarely gave dramatic speeches, and lived a relatively simple life in a world that often celebrates loudness and self-promotion. his quiet excellence stands out. His story reminds us that extraordinary impact does not require dramatic presentation. It requires dedication, integrity, and love for the work itself. The fact that such a modest figure holds one of the most impressive records in scientific history sends a powerful message about what true achievement looks like, being the only physician. To hold 2 Nobel Prizes is therefore more than a historical curiosity. It symbolizes the height of intellectual achievement, the value of collaboration, and the importance of persistence over glamour. John Bardine's record is not simply a testament to personal brilliance. It is a lesson for students, researchers, and dreamers everywhere. Great accomplishments come from patience, humility, and an unwavering commitment to exploring the unknown. His legacy demonstrates that one can change the world more than once, quietly, thoughtfully, and with a deep sense of purpose. If you'd like, I can also expand another keynote, summarize this one into a speech, or help turn it into a presentation. His first Nobel recognized the invention of the transistor in 1956. John Bardine's first Nobel Prize in Physics, awarded in 1956, honored one of the most transformative inventions in human history, the transistor. To understand why this invention was so important, imagine a world without smartphones, laptops, modern hearing aids, satellites, or even the internet as we know it. Before the transistor, electronic devices depended on bulky, fragile, power-hungry vacuum tubes. These tubes over here teared easily, broke often, and limited the growth of computing. Computers filled entire rooms and were incredibly expensive. Engineers knew that if technology was ever going to become faster, smaller, and more reliable, something radical had to replace vacuum tubes. Bardine, along with Walter Brattain and William Shockley, helped produce that radical shift. The transistor is, at its core, a tiny electronic switch. It can turn electrical signals on and off and amplify them, all while using very little energy. Although the device itself is small, its impact has been massive. By controlling electrical current with precise reliability, transistors made it possible to shrink electronic circuits from bulky giants into microscopic systems that could fit onto chips. Every modern computer chip today contains billions of transistors working together, silently performing calculations in fractions of a second. The foundation of digital technology is literally built on the idea that Bardine and his colleagues turned into reality. What makes Bardine's role especially fascinating is how his deep theoretical insight solved a puzzle others struggled with. At Bell Labs, Shockley had ambitious ideas. B kept running into technical obstacles. Bardine approached the problem differently. Instead of forcing a design to work, he studied why existing attempts failed. He focused on how electrons behaved at the surfaces of materials, especially semiconductors. By patiently analyzing this behavior, he uncovered the subtle physical effects that prevented earlier prototypes from functioning properly. The understanding unlocked the path to the first working transistor. It wasn't luck, it was careful reasoning combined with creativity. The team's success demonstrated a powerful truth. Progress in technology often depends on understanding nature at the deepest level. Without the physics behind semiconductors, the device never would have existed. This connection between theory and engineering is on reason the Nobel Committee considered their achievement prize-worthy. They had not just built a clever gadget, they had opened a doorway into a new era of electronics. The 1956 Nobel Prize recognized more than the invention itself. It recognized its consequences. The transistor quickly replaced vacuum tubes in radios, computers, televisions, and communication systems. Devices became smaller, more affordable, and more dependable. This shift fueled the rise of the electronics industry, created entirely new jobs, and changed the global economy. It eventually led to integrated circuits, microprocessors, and the birth of personal computing. Each layer of technological progress built directly on what Bardine helped pioneer. Another reason his first Nobel matters is the story behind how the work was done. Bell Labs was a unique environment where scientists and engineers worked side by side. Bardeen thrived in this collaborative culture. He listened carefully to colleagues, shared credit generously, and focused more on solving problems than claiming recognition. His modest personality contrasted sharply with the high stakes of the work. When the transistor succeeded, he did not rush teeth or broadcast his achievement. Instead, he thought about how to improve it. This steady attitude ensured that the invention continued evolving after the initial breakthrough. The transistor also changed the pace of science itself. Once computing became faster and cheaper, researchers in every field from medicine to astronomy gained better tools. Simulations, data analysis, and automation became possible on scales previous generations could not imagine. In that sense, Bardeen's first Nobel-winning work acted like a multiplier. It increased the power of human discovery across disciplines. The recognition he received acknowledged the ripple effect his invention would have far beyond physics. There were challenges, of course. Intellectual disagreements arose over credit and design leadership, especially involving Shockley. Yet throughout the disputes, Bardeen remained focused on the science, not the drama. That professionalism helped preserve the integrity of the achievement and showed future scientists how to handle success with dignity. His calm approach is often cited as one reason his work endured where others' egos might have damaged collaboration. Looking back, it is astonishing that such a small component could reshape civilization. Every text message, every streamed video, every navigation system, every digital photograph depends on the principles embodied in the first transistor. By recognizing this invention with the Nobel Prize, the scientific community acknowledged that the modern technological world had reached a turning point. Bardeen stood at that turning point, guiding it with precision and patience. His first Nobel Prize therefore represents more than an honor. It marks the birth of the digital age and highlights the role of thoughtful, persistent research in shaping the future. Bardeen's achievement teaches a lasting lesson. Revolutionary change can come from quiet laboratories, careful calculations, and a relentless desire to understand how things truly work. And it shows that when science and engineering meet in the right way, a single breakthrough can empower humanity for generations. The transistor transformed electronics, computing, and communication. The invention of the transistor marked a turning point, not just in physics, but in the entire history of technology and human society. Before transistors existed, electronic systems ended on vacuum tubes, which were large, fragile, slow, and consumed enormous amounts of power. These tubes limited what engineers could build. Radios were bulky, early computers filled entire rooms, and electronic communication was unreliable. When the transistor arrived, it quietly replaced these outdated components with something smaller, faster, and far more efficient. From that moment forward, electronics began shrinking, speeding up, and spreading into every part of daily life. At its simplest level, a transistor acts as a switch and an amplifier. It can control the flow of electrical current with incredible precision. What makes it revolutionary is not just what it does, but how small and dependable it is. Unlike vacuum tubes, transistors do not burn out quickly, do not need warm time, and require far less energy. Suddenly, devices could be designed to fit in pockets instead of taking up entire tables. This single advantage unlocked creative possibilities that were impossible before. The first major transformation happened in consumer electronics. Radios became portable. Televisions became more reliable and affordable. Hearing aids shrank dramatically, giving people independence. Eventually, transistors made it possible to build cassette players, Walkmans, digital cameras, calculators, and countless everyday gadgets. Ordinary families gained access to powerful technology that had previously belonged only to laboratories or military installations. The transistor democratized electronics, spreading advanced tools to millions of people rather than keeping them in elite institutions. But perhaps the most dramatic impact appeared in computing. Early computers such as ENIAC relied on thousands of vacuum tubes and consumed enormous power. They broke frequently because even one failed tube could bring the entire system down. When engineers began replacing tubes with transistors, computers became smaller, cheaper, faster, and far more reliable. This change paved the way for integrated circuits, in which multiple transistors were placed together on a single silicon chip. Over time, engineers learned to fit thousands, then millions, and eventually billions of transistors on one chip. Each new generation multiplied computing power while reducing size and cost. That growth pattern, described by what later became known as Moore's law, rests entirely on the transistor's ability to be miniaturized. Because of this evolution, computing moved from government laboratories to universities, then to businesses, and finally to homes. Personal computers, laptops, tablets, and smartphones all trace their roots back to the transistor. Every time someone opens a document, edits a video, designs a building, or analyzes scientific data, transistors inside microchips silently handle the work. They execute calculations in millionths of a second, coordinating complex instructions that drive modern software. Without transistors, artificial intelligence, space exploration, online education, genetic research, and countless innovations simply could not function at today's scale. Communication changed just as dramatically. Traditional long-distance communication once relied on analog signals that faded or distorted easily. Transistors enabled digital communication, signals expressed as clean on and off states that travel more accurately. They powered the development of satellites, fiber optic networking equipment, cell towers and modems. Transistors sit inside every smartphone, routing calls, processing text messages, handling internet data, managing wireless signals. Social media platforms, video conferencing, streaming services, and global news networks operate because billions of transistors coordinate their activity around the world. The transistor did more than create new devices. It reshaped economic structures and cultural habits. Entire industries emerged: semiconductor manufacturing, software development, digital entertainment, robotics, and more. Jobs shifted from manual labor toward knowledge-based work, increasing the importance of science and engineering education. People gained instant access to information, shrinking distances between cultures and countries. Even everyday tasks such as banking, shopping, navigation, and healthcare have been transformed through digital systems powered by transistors. Another profound effect lies in scientific research itself. Before transistors, experiments often took months of manual calculation. With transistor-based computers, scientists could simulate galaxies, model climate systems, design medicines, and decode DNA sequences at unprecedented speeds. This acceleration of discovery shows how one invention can amplify human intelligence by expanding our tools. The transistor became not only a component but a partner in exploration. Yet its power also brings responsibility. As electronics grow more central to life, concerns about privacy, energy use, electronic waste, and digital dependence become increasingly important. These challenges do not diminish the transistor's achievements. Rather, they highlight how transformative it has been. Technology's powerful enough to reshape civilization inevitably require thoughtful management. Understanding where they came from helps us guide where they should go next. In summary, the transistor transformed electronics by making devices smaller, faster, and more reliable. It transformed computing by enabling microchips and launching the digital age. It transformed communication by powering global networks that connect billions of people instantly. Every screen we look at, every digital system we interact with, And nearly every modern innovation carries the legacy of that tiny switch invented decades ago. What began as a piece of semiconductor physics has become the backbone of modern civilization, all because a small device learned how to control the flow of electrons with elegance and precision. His Econ Nobel in 1972 honored the BCS theory of superconductivity. John Bardine's second Nobel Prize in Physics, awarded in 1972, recognized his role in developing one of the most elegant and influential theories in modern science, the BCS theory of superconductivity. Superconductivity is a remarkable phenomenon in which certain materials, when cooled to extremely low temperatures, suddenly lose all electrical resistance. Electricity can flow through them endlessly without losing energy as heat. When this behavior was first discovered in 1911, it shocked scientists. For decades, the best minds in physics tried to explain how such a thing was even possible. The mystery remained unsolved until Bardeen, along with Leon Cooper and Robert Schrieffer, finally cracked it. Their explanation became KN, known as the BCS theory, named after their initials. To appreciate why the theory deserved a Nobel Prize, it helps to understand the puzzle scientists faced. In ordinary metals like copper or aluminum, electrons bump into atoms as they travel, and these collisions produce resistance. That is why wires heat up and why energy is lost. But in superconductors, this resistance drops suddenly to zero at a critical temperature. Not only that, magnetic fields behave strangely around them. The effect seemed almost magical. Many earlier explanations failed because they treated electrons as isolated particles. Bardeen approached the problem differently. He realized superconductivity had to be a collective effect, something that happened when electrons worked together in a coordinated way. The key sight of the BCS theory is that electrons in a superconductor form special pairs, now called Cooper pairs. Normally, electrons repel one another because they have the same electric charge. But under certain low-temperature conditions inside a crystal lattice, vibrations in the lattice can cause two electrons to become weakly linked. Instead of acting like separate particles, they move together in a synchronized wave. When millions of these pairs behave in unison, they form a highly ordered state that allows electrical current to flow without resistance. No single electron can scatter independently because the entire system behaves as one coordinated whole. This explanation was revolutionary for several reasons. First, it brought quantum mechanics, the physics of the very small, into harmony with a large-scale observable effect. Second, it demonstrated that subtle interactions inside materials could produce dramatic changes in behavior. And third, it provided testable predictions that matched experiments beautifully. Once the theory was published, scientists could calculate critical temperatures, understand how impurities affected superconductivity, and design experiments to control the effect more precisely. The BCS theory didn't just describe what scientists had already seen. It opened the door to discovering entirely new superconducting materials. Bardeen's contribution stood out because of his disciplined style of thinking. Rather than rushing to publish guesses, he carefully assembled mathematical tools, physical intuition, and collaboration. Cooper uncovered how electron pairs could form. Schrieffer discovered the mathematical structure that described the paired state. Bardeen guided the effort, connected the ideas, and ensured the theory fit reality. Their work became a model of how theoretical physics should be done, bold enough to be imaginative but precise enough to match nature exactly. Winning a second Nobel Prize for this achievement placed Bardeen in an unparalleled category. The first prize had celebrated a technological invention, the transistor. The second honored a deep theoretical breakthrough. Few scientists master both domains. Together, these two accomplishments illustrated his rare ability to move between practical engineering challenges and abstract theoretical puzzles. In each case, he searched for underlying principles rather than temporary fixes. His curiosity extended from laboratory devices all the way down to the behavior of fundamental particles inside matter. The impact of the BCS theory continues today. Superconductors are used in MRI machines, particle accelerators, magnetic levitation trains, and scientific instruments that require extremely strong magnetic fields. Engineers dream of one day developing superconductors that work at higher temperatures, which could revolutionize power grids by eliminating energy loss in transmission lines. Every step toward that future builds on the conceptual foundation Bardeen helped create. The theory also influenced other areas of physics, from superfluids to quantum computing, showing how one powerful idea can ripple across disciplines. Another important lesson for Bardeen's second Nobel is the way it highlights teamwork. Although he was the senior figure, he shared credit equally with Cooper and Schrieffer. He encouraged discussion, respected different viewpoints, and valued clarity over ego. This collaborative spirit strengthened the theory and made it more widely accepted. Science advances most effectively when insight is shared rather than guarded. And the BCS partnership demonstrated how cooperation can conquer even the toughest mysteries. In the end, the Nobel Committee honored the BCS theory because it solved a problem that had resisted explanation for more than half a century, and because it transformed how scientists think about matter, energy, and quantum behavior. Bardeen's second prize was not simply recognition of another discovery. It was acknowledgement of a mind capable of reshaping physics twice in one lifetime. His quiet persistence, rigorous thinking, and commitment to understanding nature at its deepest level made the achievement possible. The story of his second Nobel reminds us that patience, collaboration, and intellectual humility can illuminate some of the darkest corners of science, and that true breakthroughs oft come from those who are willing to keep asking questions long after others have given up. Bardeen was known for patience, collaboration, and deep curiosity. John Bardeen's extraordinary success as a scientist cannot be explained only by intelligence or technical skill. Many people are brilliant, yet few achieve discoveries powerful enough to reshape the world twice. What truly set Bardeen apart were qualities of character, patience in the face of difficult problems, a natural instinct for collaboration, and a deep, lifelong curiosity about how nature works. These traits guided every stage of his career and became the quiet engines behind his achievements. Understanding them reveals not only why he won 2 Nobel Prizes, but also what kind of mindset leads to meaningful breakthroughs in any field. Patience was perhaps his most defining quality. Science often advances slowly, with long stretches of uncertainty between small moments of clarity. Some researchers chase quick results or abandon projects when the answers do not come fast enough. Bardeen had a different rhythm. He was comfortable spending years studying details that others considered insignificant. When experiments led or theories collapsed, he did not become discouraged. Instead, he treated failures as clues, returning again and again to the problem until it yielded understanding. His work on the transistor is a perfect example. Early efforts by others had stalled because the physics was poorly understood. Rather than forcing a device to work, Bardeen paused, studied the surface effects in semiconductors. ND slowly built a foundation from which the invention could finally succeed. This calm, deliberate approach turned what looked like dead ends into pathways forward. His patience was not passive, it was active, disciplined persistence. He believed that great discoveries are rarely sudden flashes of genius. More often, they are the result of thousands of careful questions and countless small correct ions accumulated over time. This attitude protected him from frustration and allowed him to keep moving steadily while others gave up. Students who worked with him often remarked on the atmosphere in his lab. There was no sense of panic or competition, only thoughtful concentration. Bardeen's quiet manner set the tone. He showed that scientific progress is a marathon, not a sprint, equally important. Ant was his instinct for collaboration. Bardeen never treated science as a solitary competition. He understood that complicated problems require many minds looking from different angles. Instead of dominating discussions, he listened carefully, asked clarifying questions, and helped others refine their ideas. This behavior encouraged colleagues to speak freely and share insights that might otherwise have remained hidden. At Bell Labs, his respectful style helped knit together the team that invented the transistor. Later, his partnership with Leon Cooper and Robert Schrieffer produced the BCS theory of superconductivity. In both cases, the discoveries were not the product of one isolated genius, but of a group working in harmony, and Bardeen was the steady center that helped the group's fun. Collaboration also shaped how he handled recognition. When praise or awards came, he deflected attention toward his teammates. He never exaggerated his role, even though his contributions were essential. This humility strengthened trust and made people eager to work with him. In an environment where egos can easily clash, Bardeen's cooperation created unity. His example demonstrates that intellectual generosity is not a weakness, it is often the key to unlocking shared creativity. The Nobel Committee's decisions reflect that reality. Both of his prizes were shared, underscoring the idea that true achievement in science is usually collective. Underneath both his patience and his collaborative spirit was a powerful curiosity. Bardeen was genuinely fascinated by the hidden workings of the physical world. He wanted to understand why materials behaved the way they did, how electrons moved, and what laws governed them. His motivation was not fame, wealth, or status. He pursued questions because they were compelling in themselves. This kind of curiosity is deeper than simple interest. It is the steady desire to see beneath the surface, to keep asking why even when answers seem elusive. It fueled his willingness to read widely, to explore new fields, and to revisit problems that had resisted explanation for decades. Curiosity also made him fearless about complexity. Difficult topics did not intimidate him, they intrigued him. When he turned from electronics to superconductivity, he was entering a mystery that had defeated scientists for more than 50 years. Instead of being discouraged by the challenge, he was drawn to it. His curiosity acted like a compass, guiding him toward the questions that mattered most, even if they required long journeys to solve. Students who encountered him found this enthusiasm contagious. He encouraged them not simply to memorize results, but to investigate deeply, to keep probing until the logic became clear. These three qualities worked together in powerful ways. His curiosity told him which problems were worth studying. His patience gave him the stamina to stay with them. His collaborative nature connected him with partners who could help transform insight into discovery. Remove any one of these traits, and his achievements would likely have been far smaller. Combined, they created the conditions under which extraordinary science could flourish. Bardeen's life offers a quiet but persuasive message about success. Genius is often portrayed as dramatic and individualistic, but his career shows that real progress is usually steady, cooperative, and grounded in humble wonder. He never rushed to proclaim himself right, never sought attention, and never stopped learning. Instead, he built knowledge brick by brick, working with others, and remaining genuinely curious about the natural world. That is why he stands today as the only physicist to win 2 Nobel Prizes, not because he was louder or more aggressive, but because he embodied the habits that allow truth to reveal itself over time. He valued solving real-world problems, not just publishing papers. One of the most revealing aspects of John Bardeen's career the way he viewed the purpose of science. Many researchers today feel intense pressure to publish as many papers as possible. Academic success is often measured by citation counts, journal rankings, and how frequently one's name appears in conferences. Bardeen lived in an era when publishing was still important, but he never treated it as the ultimate goal. For him, research existed to illuminate, nature, and improve human life. Knowledge mattered most when it led to understanding that could solve real-world problems. That philosophy shaped the choices he made, the projects he pursued, and ultimately the discoveries that earned him 2 Nobel Prizes. Early in his career, Bardeen trained as both a physicist and an engineer. This dual background influenced his mindset. He did not see theory and application as separate worlds. Instead, he believed they strengthened each other. A good theory should help people build better tools. A good tool should reveal deeper truths about the universe. Because of this perspective, he gravitated toward problems where physics could make a tangible difference. When he joined Bell Labs, the challenge of replacing unreliable vacuum tubes was not merely an interesting academic puzzle. It was a practical necessity. Communication systems needed to become smaller, faster, and more dependable. Rather than writing speculative articles about what might someday be possible, Bardeen set about creating something that actually worked. This practical orientation explains why the transistor emerged from his efforts. He was not just trying to publish the next paper, he was trying to build the future. The invention solved real technological obstacles and paved the way for nearly every digital device we use. Ironically, by focusing on problem-solving rather than prestige, he achieved far greater recognition than many scientists who chased fame directly. The success of the transistor demonstrated that meaningful discoveries often arise when researchers ask, how can this help? Instead of how impressive will this look in a journal? The same attitude guided his later work on superconductivity. The phenomenon had puzzled researchers for decades. Understanding it was scientifically fascinating, but it also promised enormous practical benefits, such as more efficient power systems and advanced medical technologies. Bardeen recognized that unlocking the theory behind superconductivity could eventually enable innovations no one could yet fully imagine. Once again, he chose a path where theoretical insight would carry real consequences. His curiosity was always tied to usefulness, not in a narrow sense, but in a broad, human-centered one. Bardeen's preference for real-world impact also shaped the way he mentored students. Instead of encouraging them to chase quick publications, he taught them to value depth over speed. He emphasized accuracy, clarity, and relevance. A paper, in his view, was not a trophy. It was a communication tool, a way to share discoveries that truly mattered. If a result was incomplete or poorly supported, he preferred to wait, refine the work, and publish only when the understanding was solid. This patient approach protected his research from the kinds of errors that sometimes appear when scientists rush to produce results simply to stay competitive. His philosophy raises an important question. Why do some scientists drift toward publishing for the sake of publishing? Part of the reason lies in academic systems that reward quantity, but Bardeen quietly proved there is another way. By prioritizing meaningful contributions, he earned deep respect that lasted far longer than any single journal article could. His legacy shows that scientific success should be measured not just by what is written, but by what changes because of it. Another dimension to his focus on real-world solutions was ethical. Bardeen understood that science touches society. Technologies influence how people live, communicate, and even think. He felt a responsibility to ensure that his work contributed positively. The transistor created enormous economic opportunities, expanded access to information, and improved countless industries. The BCS theory enabled medical imaging tools and advanced research instruments. In each case, the chain from laboratory to real-life benefit was clear. Bardeen's sense of purpose grounded his science in service rather than self-promotion. This attitude contrasts sharply with stereotypes about pure genius driven only by abstract thought. Bardeen was certainly capable of deep abstraction, but he never allowed theory to drift far from reality. He preferred questions that connected with physical systems and measurable outcomes. His approach demonstrated that practicality and intellectual Spiritual depth are not opposites, they are partners. When scientists keep one eye on fundamental truth and the other on human need, they often create breakthroughs that endure. There is also a personal lesson hidden in his example. Many people in any profession feel pressure to chase recognition, awards, titles, attention. Bardeen's life reminds us that the most lasting rewards come from contributing something genuinely useful. He built tools that powered an entire technological revolution. He uncovered theories that reshaped our understanding of matter, and he did so without constantly seeking applause. In fact, he was famously modest, sometimes appearing almost uncomfortable with public praise. What mattered to him was whether the work itself was sound and beneficial. In the end, saying that Bardeen valued solving real-world problems is another way of saying he valued responsibility. He saw science as a calling, not merely a career. The 2 Nobel Prizes he received were not symbols of self-promotion. They were acknowledgements that his choices, guided by practical purpose, had truly changed the world. His legacy encourages future scientists to ask deeper questions. Not only what can I discover, but how can this discovery serve people? That perspective, more than any single experiment or equation, explains why John Bardeen's contributions continue to shape our lives decades later. He stayed humble and avoided the spotlight despite enormous achievements. John Bardeen's story is unusual, not only because he won 2 Nobel Prizes in physics, but also because he seemed largely uninterested in the fame that came with them. In a world where recognition, publicity, and status often dominate, Bardeen chose a quieter path. He preferred labs to lecture tours, conversations with colleagues to television interviews, and steady research to public celebration. His humility was not an act, it was a natural extension of how he viewed himself and his work. Understanding this reality gives us deeper insight into why he was able to sustain such remarkable success over his lifetime. Humility, in Bardeen's case, did not mean lack of confidence. He knew the value of his ideas and could defend them with clarity when needed. But he did not feel the urge to constantly remind others of his accomplishments. When reporters sought dramatic quotes, he often responded with brief, modest remarks. When awards were mentioned, he tended to shift the conversation toward the contributions of his teammates. This behavior reflected a belief that science is larger than any individual. Discoveries, he felt, belong to the entire community of researchers who build on one another's work. His modest lifestyle mirrored his attitude toward recognition. Even after his first Nobel Prize, Bardeen continued to teach university classes, meet with students, and work calmly in his lab, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. He did not use his title to demand special treatment. Those who interacted with him often remarked that he seemed approachable and kind, more interested in discussing physics than in discussing himself. The contrast between his fame and his personal simplicity impressed many younger scientists who saw in him an example of how success could coexist with grace. Staying humble helped Bardeen avoid a common trap, believing that past achievements guarantee future insight. Some scientists, after receiving major awards, become overly confident and stop questioning their own assumptions. Bardeen did the opposite. He continued to ask basic questions, listen carefully to criticism, and revise his thinking when the evidence required it. This openness protected him from intellectual stagnation. It also contributed directly to his second Nobel-winning discovery. Because he did not imagine himself beyond error, he remained willing to explore new fields and learn from collaborators who were sometimes younger or less experienced. Another reason humility mattered much in his career was that it fostered strong working relationships. People found it easy to cooperate with Bardeen because he did not dominate conversations or claim all the credit. In group meetings, he encouraged others to speak and took their suggestions seriously. When disagreements arose, he addressed them calmly instead of trying to win arguments simply through authority. This attitude created an atmosphere of respect. It allowed ideas to be evaluated on their merits, not on the status of the person who proposed them. Many students who worked in his lab later said they grew more confident because he treated them as partners rather than subordinates. Avoiding the spotlight also gave Bardeen more time and energy to focus on what truly mattered to him: understanding nature. Public appearances, book tours, and media engagements can consume enormous amounts of a scientist's attention. By staying out of constant publicity, Bardeen protected his ability to think deeply and uninterruptedly. He chose activities that nurtured insight rather than those that fueled celebrity. This discipline helped him maintain the patience required for complex research, where progress often depends on long periods of quiet concentration. His humility extended into his personal life as well. Bardeen valued family, friends, and simple routines. He did not cultivate an image of the dramatic, eccentric genius. Instead, he embodied the idea that extraordinary achievements can come from ordinary-seeming people who work with dedication and integrity. This image inspired others by making greatness feel reachable. Students did not see an intimidating legend. They saw a thoughtful mentor who proved that careful thinking and persistence matter more than charisma or self-promotion. Yet humility did not mean he lacked ambition. Bardeen had high standards for himself and aimed to solve some of the most challenging problems in physics. The difference was that his ambition was directed inward, toward the work, rather than outward, toward applause. He wanted to understand the world fully and accurately. Whether others noticed or celebrated that effort was secondary. Ironically, this very attitude contributed to the lasting respect he earned. People admired him not only for what he accomplished, but for how he carried himself while accomplishing it. There is a deeper lesson here about the nature of true achievement. In many fields, visibility is often mistaken for success. Bardeen's career reminds us that genuine impact does not require constant attention. The transistor exists, superconductivity is understood more clearly, and entire industries have been built on these foundations. Regardless of how often his name appears in popular media, his influence lives quietly inside technologies and scientific ideas, quietly shaping the world rather than shouting for recognition. In the end, saying that Bardeen stayed humble is another way of saying he kept his priorities clear. He saw science as a shared human effort and viewed himself as one contributor among many. That perspective helped him collaborate effectively, avoid distractions, and remain open to new ideas throughout his life. It also made his rare distinction as a two-time Nobel laureate all the more striking. He achieved greatness without seeking glory, allowing the work itself to speak. For students, researchers, and anyone striving for excellence, Bardeen's humility offers a powerful reminder. The most enduring legacy often belongs to those who let their achievements shine while they themselves remain quietly, sincerely grounded. His career shows the power of persistence over sudden genius. When people think about scientific breakthroughs, they often imagine sudden flashes of brilliance, moments where genius strikes like lightning and everything becomes clear. But John Bardeen's career tells a very different story. His achievements were not the result of one dramatic moment. Instead, they emerged from years of quiet persistence, repeated failure, careful thinking, and continuous improvement. In many ways, his life proves that persistence can be more powerful than what we usually call genius. Bardeen was undeniably intelligent, but intelligence alone did not separate him from others. Many physicists of his time were brilliant. What made him unique was his ability to stay committed to hard problems for long periods, even when progress seemed invisible. He treated scientific challenges like long journeys rather than quick puzzles. Instead of chasing attention or rushing toward publication, he patiently refined ideas until they worked. Consider his role in the invention of the transistor. For years, engineers struggled with unreliable vacuum tubes. They overheated, broke easily, and limited technology. Replacing them was not one big discovery. It was a slow, frustrating process. Bardeen and his colleagues faced experiment after experiment that failed. Some prototypes behaved unpredictably, Some produced no usable signal at all. Many researchers might have moved on, assuming the problem was impossible. Bardeen did the opposite. He slowed down, observed patterns, and returned again and again to the same question: why isn't this working? He believed that if he could understand the failure deeply enough, a solution would eventually appear. That patient approach led to the insight that surface charges in semiconductor materials were interfering with the devices. Once that hidden issue became clear, progress followed. The transistor emerged, not as a miracle moment, but as the result of many small insights layered over time. The same story repeated in his Nobel-winning work on superconductivity. For decades, scientists had been puzzled by why certain materials lost all electrical resistance at extremely low temperatures. The effect was real and measurable, yet nobody could fully explain it. Many leading physicists tried and failed. Instead of treating the question as unsolvable, Bardeen quietly returned to it after his work on the transistor. He partnered with Leon Cooper and Robert Schrieffer, and together they spent years exploring every possible angle. Their final answer, the BCS theory, was elegant, but it only appeared after endless calculations, revisions, and doubts. Again, it was persistence that carried them across the finish line. Nothing about. The process was instant. Bardeen also demonstrated persistence in the personal sense. He was not someone who demanded recognition or fame to keep working. Even after his first Nobel Prize, he continued attending meetings, mentoring students, and doing experiments like any ordinary professor. He knew that meaningful contributions take time and that ego can get in the way of progress. His humility helped him stay focused. When public attention faded, his dedication did not. Another part of Bardeen's persistence was his willingness to collaborate. Persistence does not mean refusing help. It means staying committed to the goal while welcoming input from others. He listened carefully to colleagues, valued different perspectives, and believed that complex problems required more than one mind. His success shows that persistent teams can outperform isolated geniuses. Bardeen's story also challenges a harmful myth, the idea that people either have genius or they do not. If talent alone determined success, then countless brilliant scientists would have matched his achievements, yet none did. What set him apart was the courage to keep going when results were slow. He embraced repetition, revision, and patience. He accepted that discovery is often boring before it becomes exciting. We can see the results of that persistence everywhere today. Modern computers, smartphones, satellites, medical equipment, and countless electronic tools exist because the transistor made them possible. Technologies based on superconductivity power MRI machines, accelerate particles in research labs, and support deep scientific exploration. These massive global impacts were built on thousands of quiet hours in labs, notebooks, and meetings, not on dramatic moment of inspiration. Bardeen's career offers a powerful lesson for students, researchers, and anyone pursuing ambitious goals. You do not need to be the loudest person in the room. You do not need instant success. What matters is the ability to return to difficult work again and again with curiosity and patience. Real progress often hides inside failure, and only persistence reveals it. In the end, John Bardeen did not simply prove that extraordinary discoveries are possible. He showed how they happen, step by step, layer by layer, day after day. His life stands as evidence that persistence, discipline, and steady effort can accomplish what sudden genius rarely does. He balanced theory and practical engineering throughout his life. John Bardeen's career is remarkable not only because he won 2 Nobel Prizes, but also because he managed to live at the crossroads of two worlds that are often separated, theoretical physics and practical engineering. Many scientists choose one path. They either develop abstract ideas or they build devices and machines. Bardeen, however, moved comfortably between both. This balance shaped his extraordinary achievements and explains why his work continues to influence technology today. To understand this balance, it helps to see what theory and engineering really mean in science. Theory focuses on understanding the fundamental laws of nature. It involves equations, models, and explanations for how things behave at microscopic or cosmic scales. Engineering, on the other hand, uses those principles to solve real-world problems, designing kits, building tools, and creating systems that people actually use. These two areas rely on each other, but they require different skills. Theoretical physicists must imagine unseen worlds. Engineers must turn ideas into functioning reality. Bardeen grew up comfortable with both sides. His early training was in engineering, which taught him to think about practical challenges like electrical rents, and material properties. Later, he moved deeper into theoretical physics, learning how to describe those same systems in mathematical language. Instead of abandoning one field to enter the other, he carried both perspectives with him. That combination became one of his greatest strengths. The invention of the transistor is a perfect example. Many researchers had the basic theoretical knowledge about semiconductors, but they lacked the engineering insight to use that knowledge effectively. Others had engineering experience, but did not fully grasp the complex physics happening inside materials. Bardeen stood exactly in the middle. He could analyze mathematically why devices were failing, while also understanding how to redesign them physically when early transistor experiments didn't work. Some scientists blamed the materials or the instruments. Bardeen went deeper. He used theoretical reasoning to show that electric charges were becoming trapped at the surface of the semiconductor, distorting its behavior. That insight did not stay on paper. He immediately applied it in the lab, guiding the creation of improved designs that finally worked. The result was the transistor, a device that revolutionized electronics. His success in superconductivity demonstrated the same pattern, but from the opposite direction. There, the mystery was primarily theoretical. Scientists had observed that certain metals lose all electrical resistance at extremely low temperatures, but no one could explain why. The engineering facts were clear. The phenomenon existed and could be reproduced. What was missing was a deep theoretical model. Bardeen approached the problem with the intuition of someone familiar with materials and devices. He knew that electrons move not as isolated particles, but within real structures made of atoms. Working with Leon Cooper and Robert Schrieffer, he built a theory that connected quantum physics to the behavior of metals. The BCS theory transfo made superconductivity from a strange curiosity into a predictable phenomenon. That theoretical understanding later enabled engineers to design new technologies based on superconducting materials. In both major achievements, the same pattern appears. Theory informed engineering, and engineering inspired theory. Bardeen moved back and forth naturally, never seeing the two as separate worlds. He saw them as two tools in the same toolbox. This balance influenced his personality as a scientist as well. Bardeen was not interested in glamorous theories that had no practical use, nor in engineering quick fixes without understanding why they worked. He valued solid foundations. He was patient enough to derive equations carefully, but pragmatic enough to ask, how can this help us build something better? His work environment also reflected this mindset. Whether in a university lab or Bell Labs, he enjoyed settings where scientists and engineers collaborated openly. Because of this balance, Bardeen also became an excellent mentor. Students who worked with him learned not only how to solve equations, but also how to connect abstract solutions to real problems. He encouraged them to build prototypes, test predictions, and revise their ideas when the data disagreed. In his view, knowledge was valuable only when it could explain or improve the world. The impact of this philosophy is visible everywhere today. Almost every electronic device, from smartphones to satellites, exists because someone applied both physics and engineering at once. The transistor arose from an understanding of electrons in solids, but it also required creativity in manufacturing and design. Superconducting technologies, including medical MRI machines and scientific accelerators, rely on the same powerful blend. Bardeen's balanced approach carries an important message. Genius is not only about thinking deeply, it is also about building wisely. Theory without application see and stay trapped in textbooks. Engineering without theory can stumble blindly. When the two work together, breakthroughs happen. In a world that often forces people to specialize narrowly, John Bardeen proved that crossing boundaries can be a strength. His life reminds us that curiosity should move freely between ideas and action, imagination and implementation. That is how a scientist becomes not just a thinker, but a creator of lasting change. His discoveries helped build the modern technological world. When we say that John Bardeen's discoveries helped build the modern technological world, we are not using exaggeration. His work forms part of the invisible foundation beneath almost every device, communication system, and scientific instrument we rely on today. Without the transistor and the theory of superconductivity, the world we live in would look slower, bulkier, and far less connected. Start with the transistor. Before its invention, electronics depended on vacuum tubes, fragile glass components that overheated, burned out, and took up enormous space. Early computers filled entire rooms and consumed huge amounts of power. Radios and telecommunication systems were unreliable. The idea of personal computers, smartphones, and portable devices was unthinkable. Bardeen was part of the Bell Labs team trying to solve this limitation. Because of his work, the transistor emerged not as a curiosity, but as a practical, repeatable device. The transistor acted like a switch or amplifier, controlling electrical signals with precision. More importantly, it could be made tiny, cheap, and durable. That one shift changed everything. Every modern microchip, in computers, watches, smart TVs, medical devices, vehicles, and satellites, contains billions of transistors etched into silicon. They process information, store data, and drive software systems. The digital revolution, the internet, artificial intelligence, and global communication all exist because transistors made computing scalable and affordable. When people talk about the information age, they are really talking about the consequences of Bardeen's work. Yet his influence extends even further through superconductivity. At first glance, superconductivity sounds like a niche topic, electricity flowing with zero resistance in certain materials at extremely low temperatures. But understanding how and why this happens open powerful new technologies. Medical imaging provides a clear. MRI machines rely on superconducting magnets to create strong, stable magnetic fields that allow doctors to see inside the human body without surgery. Millions of patients benefit from this technology every year. Particle accelerators, machines that explore the fundamental structure of matter, also depend on superconducting systems. Our knowledge of the universe, from subatomic particle to cosmic forces, advanced because the BCS theory made these tools practical and efficient. Superconducting applications continue to expand. High-speed magnetic levitation trains, advanced energy storage, and experimental power grids aim to reduce losses and increase efficiency using principles rooted in Bardeen's work. While not every system is widespread yet, the path exists because the science is understood. Another way Bardeen shaped the modern world is through innovation culture itself. His discoveries showed corporations, governments, and universities that deep scientific research could produce real economic and technological power. Bell Labs became a model for industry-supported research institutions. Countries invested in physics education. Generations of scientists learned that ideas grown in laboratories could reshape society. Equally important is how his work democratized technology. Before the transistor, computing belonged only to governments and elite institutions. After it, knowledge processing moved into homes, schools, and pockets. Students now code programs, families stream videos, farmers use GPS-guided equipment, and doctors consult databases from remote villages. The ripple effect on education, communication, business and healthcare is immeasurable. It is worth noting that Bardeen did not chase fame or personal reward while contributing to these breakthroughs. He cared most about solving problems that mattered. That mindset ensured his discoveries were not trapped in theory. They reached factories, engineers, and consumers. His humility helped turn knowledge into usable infrastructure rather than isolated academic achievement. Today, fields that seem unrelated to physics, social media, digital art, online banking, rely on systems powered by transistors and advanced materials science. If we removed Bardeen's contributions from history, the world would revert to slow machines, huge servers, expensive electronics, and limited communication networks. Scientific progress would still occur, but decades later and at far greater cost. Another remarkable aspect is how his discoveries inspire continuing innovation. Researchers still refine transistor designs for faster chips. Engineers still search for new superconducting materials that work at higher temperatures. Bardeen's work did not close chapters, it opened them. Entire industries now exist because of the scientific frameworks he helped establish. Ultimately, saying that John Bardeen helped build the modern technological world means recognizing that much of daily life, navigation, communication, medicine, finance, entertainment, research, and transportation, depends on principles he uncovered and technologies he enabled. His impact is quiet but everywhere, woven into the circuits and magnets powering modern civilization. His story reminds us that groundbreaking progress often begins far from the spotlight, in thoughtful experiments and careful equations. And it shows that when science connects deeply with human needs, it can reshape how billions of people live, work, and dream, not just for one generation but for many to come.